So Tyler, thank you for making the journey and for being part of the Mastermind interview series.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you for so many reasons. Because what you do is really interesting in a lot of ways. We'll get into that. First, I want to talk about you. I mean, we talked to before where you really are a ninja online, which is surprising considering what you do. Yeah, you do it really well because it is with an intention. But your role is the Director of Content and Digital for Real Salt Lake.
Creative director. It keeps modifying
changing.
and changing. So creative director is a little bit easier to kind of roll off the tongue. But yeah, I get to control pretty much the media presentation for Real Salt Lake, which is a fun gig.
Yeah.
You basically get to talk about soccer, and who would have thought that was even a possibility 20 years ago in the United States.
Yeah.
And so the club has expanded and evolved so quickly that it's become much more than just soccer, which is fun. So you get a variety of stories to tell, and we get to share those stories with a mass audience, not only here in Utah, but kind of nationwide. So it's pretty fun, and I'm a very lucky man.
You have a really cool job. Now, let's talk about being a voice for, a space that is what it is.
The social world.
Right. But there's also that aspect of, we talked to Bart Sharp from the Utah Jazz, and there's so many challenges with just the dynamic of sports. I mean, you have the fans, but then you have this schedule that is always changing. And it's like, will we make, for them playoffs, or everything can change at the drop of a hat, right? So what is it like to form the voice for RSL? I mean, they've been around 10 years at this point?
We will be 15 years here next season. We'll celebrate our 10th year at Rio Tinto Stadium in October. So they've been around a while, and it's grown from just one soccer team to now an entire club with 3 professional teams and an academy building that's $80 million and world class, with a foundation, and it comes with marketing, it comes with ticketing, it comes with in-stadium presentation, and et cetera, et cetera. Basically, my team is the inner agency for all of those properties. So anything that you see photo, video wise, comes from us. We don't pay for anything outside to be made and things like that. So it's an overwhelming task at times because there's so many different people to serve and so many different segments of the fan base that the RSL fans aren't necessarily Utah Royals FC fans or Monarchs fans, or they don't know anything about the academy. So everything's a little segmented when you're speaking on either one of those different teams. And then the way you deliver it on platforms changes because your audience on Twitter is different than Instagram, vice versa. And so as I've been there, it has been a challenge, but fun to kind of do some testing, establish what I call pillars of this is what we stand for as a club. And then you always have the ability to modify things from those pillars. But you have to understand what a fan wants to hear versus what you need to do for your corporate sponsors versus what you need to do on a press release or the creative that's attached for a positive announcement or a negative announcement. And so it's always changing. It's always evolving in a sense where sometimes an algorithm totally ruins what you have going on Facebook, and you have to figure that out and kind of balance things out. So you are getting to the intended audience and you're delivering the content that you need to deliver to certain people. And then there's things where results are out of your control. And that's the biggest thing that you have to adjust to. Sometimes the results are positive and everybody's happy. Sometimes the results aren't very positive and everyone's rather upset. And so you have to learn to not take those things personal, that these people who may be voicing displeasure aren't personally attacking you. They're just sharing their opinion. And sometimes that opinion doesn't match what you feel, but it's their entitled right to say, hey, I'm not happy with this, or hey, I'm really happy with this. And so as we've grown, it's been fun to find out what works and what doesn't work. And hopefully we continue to put out stuff that works more than it doesn't work. But there's just a different way to approach each thing that you're doing, and having that sense of what works for marketing or what works for your team store doesn't necessarily work for the organic content for your team. And being able to say that to somebody if you need to stand up and defend why you delivered something in a way that you did. So it's a interesting world that we live in now, with the ability to not have to wait for the 5 o'clock news or the 10 o'clock news or tomorrow's paper. Like, you are in direct contact with your audience. So how can you best serve your audience that you currently have and grow that audience? It's an ever evolving process, and it's fun to be a part of because it changes every day.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a good exercise in just no assumptions.
Yeah.
Even what worked yesterday is just probably not going to work.
What
today.
worked 18 months ago is archaic. It's like a dinosaur. You used to be able to say, hey, we're going to have $20 tickets, and they'd be sold out on Facebook in 10 minutes. Now they make you pay for advertisements, and they limit how many views you're going to get based off of the percentage of followers you have on certain platforms. So you have to find something that's for the casual person, and you have to find something that's super targeted. And these businesses and platforms are super smart. They want you to pay money. Like, weird, right?
Thought,
I
right?
know. It's just crazy. Like 2018. So to find the balance of organic or paid content is a challenge nowadays. And plus, everybody's making stuff. Everybody's on their apps.
Yes.
Everybody's evolving and trying out new apps. And so it's just, you have to go where the people are, and you have to accept that sometimes you know nothing. Jon Snow.
Love it. No, in terms of the brand, I mean, fans are invested, like, and sponsors as well, but I feel like fans, they may as well be sitting on the bench, That's how invested they are in their teams. And I imagine those opinions, I mean, they feel very justified in offering those.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So, I mean, one, there's a lot of heat behind that. But then there's also those that maybe would take the brand and do something different than what you would want as the actual brand voice. So those pillars, I'm really interested about these pillars, because those sound like those might be the grounding points that you can always go back to.
I call them our foundation.
Okay.
If things, no matter what are happening, those are our foundations that we can go back to. Good, bad, or indifferent. You can always kind of lean on those things. I say we're not front runners. We would not do our fans justice if we only posted highlights when we won, and we just, disregarded bad results. So whether, it's a historic victory or a historic loss or just somewhere in between, you kind of have to face it. Where you face it as a brand, and you play it straightforward. Obviously, you celebrate and you have some fun when things are going your way, but you can't run away from something that you can't control and may be perceived as negative where people are upset. You just can't. Like, that's not how you have to face the modern world. Like, you can't hide anything anymore. It's 2018. If you want to search for something and you want to dig up information on me and my personal social media, it's there. You can find it if you'd like. And there's probably stuff that, I haven't been able to wipe from the internet for Real Salt Lake that you could find from 2000 that they wouldn't like, or it's like not representative of a brand right now. So it's an ever evolving thing. And so we have pillars that are our foundation, where it's like, hey, this is who we are, this is what we stand for as an organization. And if we need to post something, then you have any sort of question about what I should do with this post, you look to this, and this is where this will guide you. And if you still can't find an answer, then we have a lot of very talented people in our group. You ask them, And then once that comes up with some sort of unified answer, you ask a complete stranger that has no idea what this would mean if they saw this. And then that'll give you kind of a gauge of our audience. Because you have people that are diehard fans, that's their right. We wouldn't have jobs if we didn't have diehard fans, or just casual fans that wanted to be invested in not only what we're doing, but what the team's doing and everything that comes with Real Salt Lake. So you have to understand that it's their right and entitlement to say something, whatever that is. You have to just accept it. And once you accept that, then you can start to actually grow and go from there.
Now, I mean, you keep it real or real.
Aye.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. So those 4 pillars, I would love to know how you crafted those. Like, what was the process for coming up with 4 pillars that would stand, the test of time for you?
Our club has grown at a rapid pace the last 3-4 years. And when I got there, it was just one team. And then it grew to 2 teams. And then it grew to a 3rd team. And now we have this big building. And it can't just be about people kicking soccer balls. We do so much in this community. And 20 years from now, Real Salt Lake as a club will still be here. And it'll be a part of the true fabric of Utah. Because you'll have kids that grow up, loving Real Salt Lake, going to games, going to Royals games, playing at the academy, going through the system and stuff like that. Where right now for the Utah Jazz, there are 3 generations of fans. They've been here for 40 years. You have the grandpa that was the original season ticket holder who had a son, who now has a son or a daughter, that's what they share their time doing. Like, they go to games. Like, there's a connection. Right now for Real Salt Lake, the oldest fan that's always known Real Salt Lake as a thing is 13. Like, we haven't been around in the grand scheme of things very long. But the investment that Mr. Hansen's made and the investment that the front office and the technical side has made, where you look around in 20 years and there's going to be academy satellite buildings everywhere. There's going to be the stadium out there. There's going to be kind of footprints all over Utah. That's when you're going to truly see that, there's people out there doing good that has nothing to do with actual soccer, but they're affiliated with Real Salt Lake. And so as we've grown, I've had to learn how to balance what everybody wants to know. Hey, who won the game? Versus the initiatives that have been set out before us. Because it is more than just kicking soccer balls. There are people visiting hospitals and cancer patients every day that we want to tell stories about, but not too much because we don't want to exploit it type of thing. We're just doing good to do good. Right. And so we're also investing in the youth by, paying for soccer camps and things like that. And sometimes you just do good to do good, and then you tell that story down the line, or you partner with US Soccer for this, or you partner with the NWSL for that, or you set up things for people in the community to get exposure of hey, this is this person, and they're interested in that. And yes, they kick soccer balls, but they're humans, and they have more diverse interests than just what happens on the field on Saturday or at training and stuff like that. And so as I looked at it and we wanted to grow the audience, we had to find a balance of what our voice sounds like, how we perceive ourselves, how we want people to perceive us, and what's the best way to deliver that on various media platforms. Because there is the PR side of things where we still have to be on the local TV channels. We still have to be in the local newspaper, even though we control a lot of the way that we connect with our direct fans. Somebody could be a diehard fan in Ogden that only watches us on Channel 2 or Channel 5 or Channel 13 or 4 or whatever it is. So we have to make sure that we're also there. And what do we provide people like that? And how do we want them to perceive our content? It's an ever-evolving thing because media is changing so rapidly. So it's not just, hey, does this tweet sound funny to you?
Yeah.
It's, hey, what happens when we hit publish? Because once you put it out there, even if you delete it because you have a spelling error, somebody's going to catch it. Somebody's going to see it. So, there's a lot of power in being in quote unquote control of a brand, because it's not just a person. You're representing an aura.
And how do you personify something like a brand that, it's a medley of people, and they all have personalities. Each of your athletes have personalities.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to rally around them.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that?
You build relationships, and you find out what's important to people that truly matter inside and outside the building.
Mm-hmm.
And then you make sure that everything that you're doing is acceptable to those people and or your fan base. And so you're going to have your hits and misses, and you have to accept that that's going to be the case. You're not going to be perfect. Like, there's just no way. Nobody is. And so when you misstep, you raise your hand, you say, that was my fault. And you learn from it, and you try not to make the same mistake twice. Will it happen? Probably. There are key moments that you fail all the time. But that's okay. Failure is only a detriment when you refuse to learn from it. So you learn from what didn't go well, and you make sure that you do a little bit better when you're put in that same situation. When I came around, the results started going the opposite direction from what people were used to. And so we had to learn that celebrating just success was a lot easier than celebrating a big club that is kind of struggling to produce wins on the field. So how do you balance out that? And I failed a lot. I'll be honest, I did. Some things just didn't work. But you figure it out. You figure out how you can kind of take it on the chin or face people straightforward and just kind of put it out there. You can't lie to people anymore. You can't sugarcoat or put lipstick on a pig, quote unquote. You just, sometimes you just got to wear it on the chin and dust yourself off and go to the next one. And once you kind of accept that and people realize that you're not speaking or putting your own spin on things, where you're letting the captain, Kyle Beckerman, speak for the club, or the head coach, Mike Pecky, speak for the club, or Mr. Hansen, or somebody that carries a little bit of clout, and you're letting their words, their exact words, carry what the club is putting out there, then people can accept that. Nobody wants to hear from a social media manager their spin or their excuse. That's not their place.
Right.
Really, when it comes down to it, your place in the organization should be very well defined, and I think we've gotten to a point where that is the case.
Now, you would probably know better than anyone on this PR crisis. You see companies.
That's not a thing. What are you talking about?
Yeah. When a company, something happens,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe it's out of their control, or maybe you find out that it was well within their control and it was a misstep. I am always curious to know, what is the best way to own it, apologize only for what you know, or basically recoup from that? Because you see companies do it so poorly, and then you see companies do it so well.
I've learned a long time ago that you cannot control everything. When it comes down to it, where I'm at now, I can't control everything that I want to content-wise. I just can't, but you have to do, with my kind of viewpoint on everything, what I tell people is, if things go well, it's because of my team. If things go wrong, it's because of me, because I didn't set them up for success. And so in the organization, when there's stuff that's out of our control, then what you have to do is gather all the information. You listen to the people that are telling you this information and wherever they sit on the hierarchy of things, and you give them what you think would be the best and most successful thing for how to deliver that information. And then you understand your place and you let those decision makers handle it. Now you can try to steer them in a certain direction. But at the end of the day, if somebody that is above you tells you this is what we're going to do, then you do it. And you just deal with it. And you just say, okay, well, this is going to be your responses. This is going to be what happens. And then you collect that data and then you present it to them later. You say, hey, this is successful or this wasn't successful. We had a person in our club who is still very much beloved leave the club, and we learned a lot from that. I could say that we didn't handle it very well from a PR or social perspective. There's a lot to the story, but at the same time, like the next time that comes up, like we've already dealt with it beforehand, where somebody popular was going to leave again, and the reception was exponentially less. The noise was exponentially less of dissatisfaction. And so you have to learn, hey, this is how we celebrate somebody. This is how we have to be above board. And fans have an emotional connection. They don't remember the bad times, they only remember the good times because that person provided them so many happy moments. It's kind of like the rose-colored glasses of a relationship. Yeah. You know, like it hurts in the moment, but when you think back, like, oh yeah, that was pretty good. Oh, that was pretty awesome. Like you only remember the good times, or you don't remember the things that led you to make that decision. So you just have to make sure that when the opportunity comes up or presents itself again, that you're prepared and that you do your research, you look over and pore over your notes that you made, and then you present the best laid plan and you stick to the plans. When you make a decision, stick with it. When people make mistakes or PR companies make mistakes, it's because they waffle. Nobody wants to, like, if you make a decision, you made it. Go with it. Like, and learn from it. And then, you know, don't be quote unquote dumb enough to just stick with a bad decision. But like, this is the best laid plan. Here's the actions that we're going to take. Stay the course and go from there.
That's a really good point, because even if you make a mistake initially, but you were like, you own that position, later you can say, you're right. That was wrong. Now, and that's different than a waffle, right? Where you're just like, oh, well, what I meant was. Yeah. People see right through that.
So what I try to do is I have a lot of very talented, I call them Team Awesome. I call them Team Awesome meetings. Like literally we're getting together. It's the creative staff, and what I always try to remember is we're so closely tied and invested in the project that sometimes we lose the grand scope of things. So I always, after we kind of go back and forth, I always try to ask people that don't have as much tied to things before we make a big decision. Can I get your thoughts? Now, I don't put too much into it, but maybe it's something obvious that we just missed. Like, I don't ever want to be the McDonald's where you put out a national campaign and then somebody says it out loud and they go, how did that get through so many people? And you're like, oh my, how did I not see it? And once, you know, it's kind of like your friend, and I'm going to use you as an example, that snorts when they laugh.
Friend being me.
Yes. And so once you actually hear it and you notice it, you can't unnotice it, right? So just make sure that before you make any really big decision that you kind of put it out there to, I call them Uncle Joe's and Aunt Mona's, the regular folk. That like, you're like, oh yeah, like your aunt and uncle that don't know too much about, for us, soccer. Hey, if I said this, what would you think? And then, oh, it's not something ridiculously obvious that we missed. Okay, then we're all right. We can go from there. You're as viral as you can get, you know, like where things are popular and grand. You're always going to get worse publicity for doing or making an obvious mistake that's much harder to come back from than doing a million things right in a row. So make sure that you don't have that one big obvious mistake.
No pressure.
Yeah.
But you know, that layer of just running things by people, I think that's brilliant, and something we're all in a rush. because we were talking to Alex from Purple Mattress, and we were saying how, okay, you've had all these successes, but the crazy part is you never get to rest. Like this one is
Even
successful.
Though it's a mattress company.
Yeah.
Oh, the puns.
So many. I didn't even realize I made that one. You already have to have game plan for the next thing coming. While this is still like in the middle of the pipeline. And so I think that's the misconception, that you can ride the wave.
Sometimes you have to ride the wave. Like for speaking from us personally, like we had an idea of the strain the Royals would put on us. Now we lived it. We've learned a lot. Like you can have theories, but then you execute it, and then you realize, oh, this worked. Oh, this didn't work. How did this not work? Oh, okay. We'll examine it. Learn from it. What did work that we didn't think would work? Why did this work? Oh, it might be because of this, and then you dig into that. So there's a lot of layers to it, and you have to trust the people around you to give you honest answers. Like not everything can be good. It just can't be. And so if you have people that are qualified or that you trust, then you have to accept when they disagree with you. And you can't be dense enough to just disregard their opinion because they're at the table or in that meeting for a particular reason. So take what they say seriously and take it for what it is, and then if it needs to be fixed, fix it. I don't like if the best idea should always win, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you're handcuffed, and I get that. Like, sometimes you have to make things that you don't want to, but you have to. So make it the best you can, and then when you get an opportunity to have creative freedom and you have an idea, but hey, turns out this person had a better idea, okay, make that better idea as good as it can be.
And from a leadership role, I mean, you're overseeing the team. Like that example is probably going to be what trickles down to the rest of the team. Now, in terms of Team Awesome.
Just sounds so good.
Right. I suddenly want something I learned just seconds before I existed. How do you find Team Awesome members? How do you find the person you know is going to execute, but also express like that radical candor?
Fit matters. I always joke with individuals that I'm interviewing. I was like, I see your talent, but can I get along with you? Because I live with my girlfriend, and I'm gonna spend more time with you than her. And they think it's a joke, but then they start working with us and they realize, oh my goodness, you weren't kidding. And so you have to be able to get along with people and work with people, because if there's tension or if the personalities don't fit, then it's going to create an environment where you don't want to be at work. And the best thing about Team Awesome is the drive that they have, that everybody really loves working there. Like they, every workplace is going to have its inefficiencies that stick out because you're in the weeds, right? No matter what job you have. Like I've had a couple quote unquote dream jobs, and I could point out a handful of things that I didn't necessarily love about that. But if you say it to Uncle Joe and Aunt Mona, who don't know anything about a TV newsroom, it doesn't sound so bad, So you have to be able to let creative individuals be creative, B, enjoy the people you're working with, and when C, you don't necessarily love the moments that you're having with those individuals, where if you guys disagree or somebody's having a bad day, let it go. Like, it doesn't mean it needs to carry or override everything that you've built in that relationship, work dynamic wise or outside. Like, hey, people can disagree. Hey, people can have bad days. If you have 5 out of 7 bad days week in and week out, then maybe that's just your personality. But like, let's make sure that, hey, you have 1 bad day a week, no big deal. Like, hey, let's talk through it. Okay, this is what happened. This is why this happened in this particular fashion. Here was my thought process behind it. This is why the lack of communication made this situation get here. And are we okay? Because at the end of the day, you have to be okay. And if your team feels undervalued or overlooked, then it's going to cause a rift that potentially can't be solved. Mm-hmm. And so you have to make sure that you are humans every now and again. And that's one of my favorite sayings for Team Awesome is go be a human. Like, work is work, like we all love it, enjoy it, but at the same time, you've got families, you've got animals, you've got, I don't know, golf lessons or dance recitals, or you've got parent-teacher conference night. Like, go and do that. Like, be happy about it and leave work here. And as long as you treat people with respect and understanding that their lives are bigger than just that office, or then I think you're going to find you have better people that want to be around and a part of your group.
I think that's a huge misconception for like the generation just coming into the workforce, because we've hired, agency life, teams are always moving and switching, and we're always hiring and, forming my team. There's this idea that you have to just be passionate about what you do, but what that means is that you're just always happy. You're just always like, this is the best thing ever, every day, every minute of every day. And in my one-on-ones, I think the biggest myth buster for them is that I'll tell them, I don't enjoy this every minute of every day.
You can't.
I'd rather be eating bonbons. I'd rather be hanging out with puppies. I'd rather be independently wealthy. But since I choose something, like I'm going to choose this, and I'm going to choose this dynamic, and I'm going to choose you as my people. And if one of those is awry, then, you make fixes. But I think that's the biggest myth, is that passion means all the time.
Yeah, and everything's perfect always. It's not Pleasantville.
Perfect. Yeah, like you shoot for the ideal, but I think that ideal is just a mirage.
Yeah, and I think it's also a part of our modern day society where on social media we happen to put out the best.
The highlight reel?
The highlights. It's the 2 minutes of look how glamorous everything is. And so when you look at a team like yours, I'm sure that when you're selling yourself to a prospective employer or prospective employee to join your team, you want to put out the best.
For sure.
Maybe that's the kind of aura that you've created. It's the same thing for us. But at the end of the day, like, I don't know, maybe I didn't sleep well last night, and so I didn't have my normal dose of coffee didn't kick in.
I'm just hangry.
Yeah, like, people are human. Like, it just happens, and that's okay. But you don't want something like, I didn't get to eat until 2:00, so maybe I said something that was sarcastic, and it came off as not the most awesome sentiment to ruin, the next 3 days. Admit when you're a punk and just go from there. But at the same time, like, you have to have people that want to be there and also fit personality wise. Like, your group should balance out the collective goal. What I've learned is you can't treat everybody the same. Everybody has their own quirks. You have to find out what a personality is of each member and kind of cater the way that you talk to that individual, or give them certain assignments. And I've learned a lot because I've been far from perfect, where sometimes I talk to somebody on the team and I go back to them like in a private moment, and where it's just me and that individual. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. Like, I've made a mistake. I apologize. And it's been something that I've learned to admit right off the bat, and don't just assume that everything's okay. Sometimes there's a method to the madness, and sometimes you just messed up.
Yeah.
And so just be like, hey, I apologize. I really appreciate you as a part of this team, and I made a mistake. And you'll find that people who have desire to work and produce things And we hold ourselves to such a high standard where we're at that they're going to continue to strive to not only meet that standard, but exceed it and continue to push it up. And that's the best thing about Team Awesome right now, is that they keep raising the bar. And I lucked out, really. Like, I could not have asked for a better team, and everybody's so self-driven and wanting to make the collective that much better that I've got really no complaints about Team Awesome, really, besides, the fact that they don't bring like cookies enough, somebody doesn't bring sweets all the time.
Oh my goodness.
I know, they're the worst, right?
Seriously.
I can barely stand them.
Well, now they know.
Yeah, I'll let them have it. Yeah.
There's one thing
I'm
you
just
can
going
improve
to send that portion, that little clip. Okay, come on, guys. Where's the sweets at?
You're Team Awesome-ish. The cookies would be the game changer.
The ish is the very, very important part. Ish.
Yes. And, we've talked to a number of people in hospitality, because technically you're in that hospitality role.
100%.
It's about creating good experiences. And what all of them have said is that, you know what, if everything's perfect all the time, you get a certain level of loyalty from your fans, your attendees. But what we've noticed is that when we mess up and then we make it right, or we work with them to make it right, that is where it's like their loyalty is just, it's 10x.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for some reason, that's that human nature of, they're like, oh, shoot, like, you validated me by saying, hey, I may have messed up with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Here's what I think would make it right. Does that work for you?
Yeah.
Like, there's power to that.
100% agree. Everybody is the center of their own universe, right? When it comes down to it, everybody.
Wait. You mean?
Yeah. And so I always get upset because I worked in like the service industry when I was in college and things like that. When people are rude to baristas or servers and things like that, it's like, hey, there's no need for that. Like, it's the same way in our industry where it's like, hey, I get it if you're trying to send a witty response back, but if somebody sends out a legitimate complaint, like, hey, touch base with them, make sure everything's okay, and see if there's anything that we can do in our power to help that individual, like, have a better experience. Some of the stuff's out of our control. Some of the stuff is, happenstance where there's a crash on I-15 and we can't control that. And the game kicks off at 7:08, and because of stuff that was happening in Sugar House construction-wise, made them come up at 7:38, and they would like to voice a complaint about something. It's like, oh, well, like, I get it, we apologize, but like, there's nothing that we can physically do. But there's other completely valid statements that people will make, that a simple gesture or a simple response or just letting people know that they're heard goes a long way.
So huge. Just validating that. Like, I hear you.
Yeah.
There's literally nothing I can do, but I hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, next time anything comes up or there's an incident, let us know. And if we can help you, we will. Oh, wow. Really? Okay. Yeah. Like, I'm jaded because I've been behind quote unquote brands before, but if you respond back to somebody that's like, hey, I'm wearing my RSL t-shirt in New York, like, just wanted to let you know, and you're like, hey, that's awesome, and respond back to them on social, you probably made that person's day. Like, they're like, wow, this brand took the time to reach out to me, and like, you're going to have a fan connection or fan for life or something like that. The person that gets Albert's jersey after the game, like, will be an Albert Rusnak fan for the rest of eternity. It's like, that kind of stuff shouldn't go lost on people, and it shouldn't go lost on us to capture those moments, and also make sure that we're doing everything that we can to amplify and take care of those things.
Now, in terms of, when Mike came on board, that change of management, I guess,
Mr.
we
Pecky.
could like it. Yeah. How much lead time did you have? And like, what was the plan? Were there multiple plans that you just were like, okay, if this happens, this, if this happens, this, this happens, this?
I always joke with Mr. Weibel, who's our general manager. I say, give me 3 days. Like, if something big is going to happen, I don't need to know the ins and outs, and because things happen all the time. And I jokingly told him one day, I was like, I get tired of making stuff that'll never be seen because something falls apart. So give me 3 days.
Yeah.
And it took a long time. And what people don't understand is, like, it takes time on my team to earn trust of key individuals. Certain people are like, didn't know my name the first year. And so, like, you have to show up day in and day out and produce things that they see of value, and they'll start to develop a relationship with you. And once you earn their trust, then that's the kind of stuff that you can utilize to produce high value stuff. And so it's not an overnight thing. Mr. Pecky, I can't call him Mr. Pecky, Mike, because I like Mike a lot, and he's a great East Coast personality. I love, and we've developed an awesome relationship that I understand, where head coaches, GMs, chief business officers, owners, they're powerful people.
Mm-hmm.
They are, like, and they're humans too. Not everybody has a good day. Like, you have to know when it's your time to speak up about something. Me to reaching out to Mike 2 hours before I kick off isn't my place. Okay. once you kind of like understand that, it's like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But sometimes that's hard for people to understand.
Right.
Like, there's bigger things that they're concerned about than social media or something of that nature, or an obligation down the line. You have to know when's the right time to approach it, and to make sure you're going through the proper protocols and things like that. Hey, if you want to schedule something out, make sure you're following X, Y, and Z type of thing. When Mike was chosen as the next head coach, we got 3 days, developed a plan, ran it by people, and they agreed with some, disagreed with other things, and then we whittled it down and said, okay, this is how we're going to do it, and we did it. And so we had to adjust to Mike's personality. We had to adjust to Mike's style as a coach, his exposure, and we had to earn his trust. We were just a bunch of new faces to him, and his main concern was the locker room. And so we had to show up day in and day out, show that what we said was going to happen happened. And then by the time that he learned, hey, if they say X, Y, and Z is going to happen, and X, Y, and Z continues to happen, oh, if they bring us this weird thing over here, I wonder why. And he can ask those questions. And he always tells me, I don't want yes men. If you need to fight back and explain to me so I understand. And so sometimes I do, and sometimes he nixes something and we don't fight back. It's like, okay, it's not worth the fight. Like, yeah, no big deal. But he has a ridiculously awesome amount of trust in one of my Team Awesome members. And because of that, and because of the way that she has proven herself over and over and over and over again, is the reason why there's certain things that we get access to that not a lot of people do around the league or in professional sports, where we're inside the locker room for post-game speeches or pre-game speeches, and we don't publish certain things without his approval or Mr. Weibel's approval. Craig, I can't call him Mr. Weibel either because we're both from Idaho, so he would make fun of me. But at the end of the day, like, these guys, you have to prove yourself to them. And you have to prove yourself to front office executives and make sure that, hey, what I'm saying has value, and here's why, and here's how it's going to make us look good. And I know this might not be something you're familiar with or comfortable with, but let me tell you how it's going to be handled, how it's going to be executed, and then trust me. If it doesn't work, I will admit it. And if it does work, I'll probably tell you I told you so.
Naturally.
And that's the thing, is that trust is, it's like with your friends or with your significant other. It's something that's built up. And so you have to earn it. And when you do, then you have somebody's full attention.
Final question. is the question I ask everyone, and that is, Tyler, what is it that you hope to be your legacy?
Oh, one, I don't ever think about legacy. But if I had to say something in that realm, it was just he was a person that wanted to help people and tell stories, and he allowed talented individuals to do what they do best. That'd be the easiest way, and I help people get where they wanted to be.
Mm-hmm. That's an awesome legacy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being part of the series.
Thank you for listening to my bad jokes.
I think I matched you on the bad joke front.
Yeah, I'm the king of them.
So many very punny.
Yeah. Every once in a while.
Thank you again. It's been an awesome interview, and
Thank you.
I'm excited to share it with everyone. So thank you.
I appreciate it.